Greetings viewers, Benji here of Benji Read Train Videos, and today we're going to be doing something a little different today. So, what is all this about? Well, let me tell you. You see, ever since I was a boy, I have loved trains, of all sorts in this case, especially steam ones. But what introduced me to steam trains in the first place? Well, it came in the form of a little train who shares the same name as my brother, surprisingly. And I guess you all know who I'm talking about. That's right, you guessed it. It's the #1 blue train himself, Thomas the Tank Engine. Throughout most of my childhood, he has been an icon, to my life at least, and still is today, even if he has lost his charm over the years, but that's another story. And I'm sure other children and even adults felt the same way, ever since Thomas made his first book appearance in 1946. However, the very thing that led to his existence was started by a book, written a year earlier by the same man who created him, the Reverend W. Audrey. This book, as we all know, was The 3 Railway Engines, based on 4 stories that Audrey told his son Christopher when he was sick with measles. And with a bit of prompting from his wife, the 4 stories were published on this very day, 80 years ago. And thus, the Railway series was born, and would eventually lead to the creation of Thomas the Tank Engine. So, to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Railway series, I've decided to do my own narration of the first 2 stories of the 3 Railway Engines. And why the first 2 stories, you may ask? Well, I was originally going to do all 4 of them, but due to certain limitations, I decided that wouldn't be possible. So therefore, only the first 2 stories will be done for this video, and I might do the other 2 another time, but we'll see. Anyway, I would now like you all to sit back and relax, and welcome to Benji's Railway Series narrations. The first 2 stories. Enjoy. Once upon a time, not so long ago, just off the coast of England, there was an island called Sodor. On the island was a railway. It was called the North Western Railway. It served the island from the west to the east. In a shed at one end of the railway, there was a little engine called Edward. He lived in that shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward, and they boasted about it. "The drivers won't choose you again," they would always say. "They want stronger engines like us." This made Edward very sad. You see, he had been one of the first steam engines to be bought for the North Western Railway, and had been working on this railway ever since. But now the bigger engines had been taking over most of his work, and there wasn't much left for him to do. And so, ever since then, he had been in the shed, and none of the drivers had chosen to take him out. Then, one morning, something happened. A new driver and fireman had just started work for the day. They walked down to the sheds, where the drivers saw Edward, looking very sad. "What's the matter?" he asked. "Would you like to come out today?" "Oh yes, please," said Edward. So the fireman lit the fire, got up lots of steam, the driver pulled the regulator, and Edward puffed out of the sheds. The other engines were very shocked and very cross at being left behind as they watched Edward make his way towards Vickerstown Station to collect some coaches. When he arrived, Edward found the coaches on a siding just outside the station. "Be careful, Edward," they said as Edward backed towards them. "Don't bump us like the big engines do." "Don't worry, my dears. I'll always be gentle," said Edward as he buffered up to them. The shunter fastened the coupling, and Edward took the coaches to one of the station platforms. "Thank you, Edward. That was very smooth," said the coaches as they cleared the siding. Edward brought his train alongside the platform, and there he waited very patiently as soon as the early morning passengers got on board. Once the boarding was done, Edward then had to wait for the guard to give the right of way. He waited, and waited, and waited, but he couldn't hear a whistle. The driver looked back, but there was no sign of a green flag. Edward was starting to get impatient. "Are we ever going to go?" he said. The driver asked the station master, "Have you seen the guard?" "No, I haven't." He asked the porter, "Have you seen the guard?" Yes, last night." Then a little boy shouted, "Here he comes!" And there, running towards the station, was the guard, with his whistling flags in one hand and a sandwich in the other. The guard apologised to everyone for being late, as he had trouble looking for his sandwiches. Then he jumped into his van, blew his whistle and waved his green flag, and Edward puffed out of the station and into the countryside. Edward worked hard all day. The coaches thought he was very kind, and the driver was very pleased, and he promised to take Edward out again tomorrow. When the day was over, Edward went back to the sheds. "I'm going out again tomorrow," he told the bigger engines that night. "What do you think of that?" But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. Next morning, Edward woke up to find nothing had changed. The bigger engines were still boasting. One of them was called Gordon. He was the railway's main express engine, and he pulled the express trains between Vickerstown and Tidmouth. "You watch me, little Edward, as I rush through the express," he said. "That'll be a splendid sight for you." When Gordon got up steam, he puffed out of the sheds. He went back towards Edward and then said, "Goodbye, little Edward. Look out for me this afternoon." Edward then went up to Ellsworth to do some shunting. Edward liked shunting. It was fun shunting trucks. He would come up quietly, then give them a push. Then he would stop, and the silly trucks would go bump into each other. "Oh!" they cried. "Whatever is happening?" Edward continued shunting till all the trucks were in their proper places. Then he stopped to rest. Later that afternoon, Edward heard a whistle, and then he saw Gordon coming from the junction, but he looked very cross, and behind him, instead of a nice shiny express passenger train, he was pulling a very dirty express freight train. A freight train, a freight train, a freight train, he grumbled. The shame of it, the shame of it, oh, the shame of it. Edward laughed, and then went to shunt some more trucks. Half an hour later, a porter ran up. Gordon can't get up the hill, he said to Edward's driver. Can you take Edward and push him, please? Edward felt very proud when the driver said, Certainly we will. Come on, Edward. Let's show Gordon what you're made of. So off went Edward to the hill. This'll teach Gordon a lesson or two, he thought to himself. They found Gordon halfway up and very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely. You're not trying. I can't do it, said Gordon. Those dirty, troublesome trucks hold me back so. If they were clean, sensible coaches, that would be different. Edward's driver came up. We've come to push. No use at all, said Gordon. You wait and see, replied Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. I'm ready, said Edward. No good, grumbled Gordon. They pulled and pushed as hard as they could. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it, puffed Gordon. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it, puffed Edward. Edward pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. But almost before he realised it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill. I've done it! I've done it! I've done it! I've done it! He said proudly. He forgot all about Edward and didn't even stop to say thank you. Edward was left out of breath and far behind. He went on to Maron Station, and there he found the driver and fireman were very pleased with him. They parked him on a siding, and whilst the fireman gave him a nice long drink, the driver said, I'll get out my paint tomorrow and give you a beautiful coat of blue with red stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed. Edward just smiled. Once topped up with water and turned round on the turntable, Edward made his way back to Ellsworth to carry on shunting trucks. On the way, he thought to himself, he may be old, but with the right sort of attitude and care from men who care about him, he can still be responsible, reliable, but most importantly, really useful. And that was the first two stories of Wilbert Audrey's The Three Railway Engines. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, as I have put a lot of effort into making it, and maybe, just maybe, once I've done the second chapter of Thunderbolts' last run, I probably might do the next two stories of this book, but we'll see. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye!